Good morning. It's my pleasure to call this meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to order. Today is Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Time is 9:30 a.m. With us today are Commissioners Emily Lindley and Bobby Janecka, as well as our General Counsel, Mary Smith, and I'm John Neerman. For those of you who are joining us virtually, please keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. For those making presentations, please wait to begin your presentation until our General Counsel or I have asked you to begin speaking. On items where discussion or argument is allowed, we will inform speakers of their time limits. Registration has now closed, but if you'd like to address the Commission on a particular topic, please email agenda@tceq.texas.gov with your name, your affiliation, the item number that you'd like to speak to, and we will do our best to accommodate that request. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being present. And Ms. Smith, I'll ask you to please call the first item.
Item number 1 is the application by Dalasu 686 LP for new Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit number WQ001-6004001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
So this is a Senate Bill 709, House Bill 801 hearing request on a new TIPDES permit. We have one requester, Mr. Hill, who expressed generalized concerns about flooding. He did not identify how the permit would affect him in a personal way. And colleagues, as you know, concerns about flooding are outside our jurisdiction on this type of application. In addition, Mr. Hill did not identify how he would be affected in a manner different from the general public. So I think we are compelled to deny this request.
I'm in agreement.
Likewise.
Well, I've got a motion then. I would move that we deny the hearing request of Thomas Hill, that we issue new Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit number WQ001-6004001 to Dalasu 686 LP as recommended by the Executive Director, and adopt the Executive Director's response to comments.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 2 is the petition for the creation of the Tomball Business Improvement District number 1. The petitioner seeks the district's creation and should present the matter, followed by any interested persons, and I think presently we don't have anyone signed in, the ED and OPIC, and OGC recommends initially limiting the parties to 5 minutes for their presentations, and the petitioners may save time for rebuttal as they bear the burden of proof.
Thank you, and I'll invite the petitioner to go ahead and identify themselves, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jessica Hollebeck. I'm an attorney at ABHR in Houston, and I represent the landowners in this matter. We are petitioning for creation of a management district encompassing approximately 240 acres. I have up on my screen, and hopefully you can see too, a map of the boundaries of this proposed district. It's at the intersection of State Highway 99 and 249, or just off that intersection. You can see at the top of the map, State Highway 99 or the Grand Parkway, and on either side it's bound by Rocky Road and Shaw Road with Boudreaux Road to the south. I'm going to go over just briefly what the land is proposed to be developed as, and then the role of the proposed improvement district and its partnership with the city of Tomball. So this land is owned by an affiliate of Levitt Industrial, who plans to develop the site for industrial use in partnership with Clarion Partnership, a real estate investment company. They are proposing 10 buildings. The building that is on the west side of your map running horizontally, that's building 8. It is already under construction. They're proposing about 3.1 million square feet of industrial with about 90,000 square feet of retail. The retail is to be located along the eastern edge of where Rocky Road is. There's a piece at the corner and then 2 buildings to the south. Right now, the 2 detention ponds, one off the Grand Parkway and one off Rocky Road, those are the 2 kind of big green squares. Those are about 80% complete to date. So the purpose of the district is to aid in financing the public improvements that are needed to develop the site. There's going to be a 12-inch water line connection to the city's water system, plus a 12-inch gravity sewer line and lift station on the east side, and then a 6-inch force main extension on the north side. The district would also help with financing the paving of 40-foot concrete curb and gutter streets, as well as amenitizing the public right-of-ways. The map that you see is our park plan. Everything in green is where the public landscaping would be located. City of Tomball has given its consent for the district's creation, in fact, so enthusiastically that the City of Tomball has also created a TERS, or a tax increment reinvestment zone, over this property to help provide additional public financing participation. We will be using 75% of the city's tax increment that's going to be generated off of the property, or the additional tax revenue that's generated on value growth as improvements are completed. That tax increment will be used for project costs, and we expect to have the management district be the issuer of any debt so that they can use this revenue stream as additional debt service payments. And that concludes my planned remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Holoback. I have none. Colleagues, any questions?
No questions.
All right, and Ms. Smith, just to confirm, we have nobody signed, no interested person signed in to speak on this matter.
That's correct.
Okay, let's hear next from the Executive Director staff.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Kayla Murray, and I'm an attorney with the Environmental Law Division representing the Executive Director. With me is Justin Tack from the District Section. The Executive Director received a petition from LIT Interchange 249 Business Park LLC for the creation of Tomball Business Improvement District Number 1 pursuant to Chapter 375 of the Texas Local Government Code. We have reviewed the petition and concluded that the creation of the district would be feasible, necessary, and a benefit to the land to be included in the district. As such, all applicable requirements have been met, and the ED recommends granting the petition for district creation. We're available for any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. I have none. Colleagues, any questions for Ms. Murray?
None.
All right, let's hear from the Office of Public Interest Counsel.
OPIC agrees with the ED that petitioner has demonstrated compliance with the applicable statutory and regulatory requirements for creation of Tomball Business Improvement District Number 1 of Harris County. We recommend issuance of the order proposed by the Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. McWhorter. I agree, colleagues. I think we should grant this petition. The heart of our analysis, and it's the heart of the Executive Director's analysis, is whether the district is feasible, necessary, and would benefit the land. And looking at the district's purpose, the availability of comparable services, the funding plans, I have no reason to disagree with the Executive Director or OPIC's conclusions on that. The application appears to meet the minimum requirements. Notice requirements have been met. The nominated directors are qualified. The Executive Director's order looks good. I would, just for consistency with the statute, change the term from temporary directors to initial directors. But other than that, I'm ready to move forward.
I'm in agreement.
Likewise, and I think we got a motion. I move that we grant the petition for the creation of Tomball Business Improvement District Number 1 in Harris County and issue the Executive Director's recommended commission order for creating the district and appointing the 5 initial directors, but correct the heading to identify, quote, initial directors, end quote, instead of, quote, temporary directors, end quote.
A second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item number 3 is the petition for creation of the Riceland Management District. The petitioner seeks the district's creation and should present the matter, followed by any interested persons. Presently, no one other than the petitioners are signed in, the ED and OPIC. OGC recommends initially limiting the parties to 5 minutes for presentations, and the petitioners may save time for rebuttal, or the petitioner may save time for rebuttal as it bears burden of proof.
And so I'll invite the petitioner to, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
When you look at that mic, there should be a green light on. If there's not, try pressing the button.
There is. I'll try and get it up as high as I can.
Yeah, you might be a little bit out of tolerance with that mic, but I can hear you fine. And go ahead and identify yourself, sir, and we're happy to hear from you.
Of course. My name is Davis Bonham. I'm with Smith, Murdaugh, Little and Bonham. We represent RDC Partners. I'm also here along with Randy Hopper of RDC Partners and James Jones of Jones Engineering, the engineer for the project. We have passed out some exhibits, I think, showing the project. It is approximately, I guess, 1,393 acres. It is in the city of Mont Belvieu. It's a pretty unique project in that the history of Mont Belvieu is that it was built on a salt dome. And for safety reasons, the city downtown was essentially relocated, and the city lacks a city center. Mr. Hopper's family has owned this property for more than 100 years, and they are now have formed a partnership with McGrath Real Estate Partners to develop the property. It actually encircles the existing city hall and has about another 1,000 acres of development that will be developed for single-family residential purposes. So it's a pretty significant and transformative project for the city. They're very supportive of it. They've actually already largely constructed their new city hall, which is kind of the cornerstone of the town center project. And so we're all very excited about it. The management district will serve to finance major roadway improvements and parks. This is a project in Chambers County. And so it would allow us to facilitate fairly substantial park and recreational facility improvements. And we ask for your consideration of the application and the order today.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bonham. Colleagues, any questions or comments for Mr. Bonham?
I just have one quick question, kind of a clarifier. For the initial directors, just to clarify that they meet the qualifications that are laid out in the Texas Local Government Code, are the 5 initial directors, are they property owners in the district? Are they?
They are property owners.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that, or if they were agents of RDC or both or whatever. But okay, that's all I needed.
Anything else?
That answered my question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate the
much.
presentation. And Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak on this item?
No one signed in on
All
this.
right, let's hear from Ms. Murray again.
Good morning again, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Kayla Murray, and I'm an attorney with the Environmental Law Division representing the Executive Director. With me is Justin Tack from the District Section. The Executive Director received a petition from RDC Partners LP for the creation of Riceland Management District pursuant to Chapter 375 of the Texas Local Government Code. We have reviewed the petition and concluded that the creation of the district would be feasible, necessary, and a benefit to the land to be included in the district. As such, all applicable requirements have been met, and the ED recommends granting the petition for district creation. We are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Colleagues, any questions?
No.
Seeing none, Mr. McWhirter.
OPIC recommends granting the petition for creation of Riceland Management District of Chambers County. We agree with the Executive Director that applicable statutory and regulatory requirements have been met, and we support issuance of the proposed order.
Thank you. Colleagues, again, the heart of our analysis is whether the district is feasible, necessary, and would benefit the land. Looking at the district's purpose to build roads and recreational facilities, the availability of comparable services, the proposed funding plan, I don't see any reason to disagree with OPIC or the Executive Director. The minimum content requirements have been met, notice obligations have been met. I think with the clarification about the qualification of the directors, I'm certainly satisfied that they are qualified. I would recommend the same correction to the Executive Director's order, but otherwise I'm ready to move forward.
As of mine, you're shaking your head, so I've got a motion. I would move that we grant the petition for the creation of Riceland Municipal Management District in Chambers County, and we issue the Executive Director's recommended commission order for creating the district and appointing the 5 initial directors, but correct the heading of the order to identify initial directors instead of temporary directors.
I second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item number 4 is the adoption of the renewal with amendment to TPDES permit, general permit number TXG 340000, authorizing the discharge of facility wastewater, contact stormwater, and stormwater associated with industrial activities into or adjacent to water in the state from petroleum bulk stations and terminals. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Shannon Gibson with the Water Quality Division. With me today is Kathy Humphreys with the Environmental Law Division. Staff requests adoption of a renewal with amendments of Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System General Permit Number TXG 340000, which authorizes discharges of facility wastewater, contact stormwater, and stormwater associated with industrial activities into or adjacent to water in the state from petroleum bulk stations and terminals. The proposed permit will replace the current general permit that expires on October 24th, 2022. Public notice of the draft permit was published in the Texas Register on March 18th, 2022, and in the Houston Chronicle newspaper on March 25th, 2022. No public comments were received during the public comment period. Staff recommends adoption of this general permit. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with the Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. I have none. Colleagues, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Seeing none. Has anyone signed in to speak?
No one is signed in for this item.
Okay, and what say the Office of Public Interest Counsel?
OPIC agrees. OPIC recommends adoption of the amendment and renewal of the TPDES general permit for petroleum bulk stations and terminals as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. I think that's right. The amendments are just very minor clarifying changes. There were no comments. Everything was properly noticed. I do appreciate and want to thank the Water Quality Advisory Committee and EPA for reviewing this change. I'm ready to move forward.
As am I.
I would move that we adopt the renewal with amendment to Texas Pollution Discharge Elimination System General Permit TXG 340000 as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item number 5 is the consideration of a resolution filed by the Municipal Solid Waste Management and Resource Recovery Advisory Council for Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to take a leadership role in examining and implementing the recommendations of the Recycling Market Development Plan and appropriate agency funding for such activities. The Municipal Solid Waste Management and Resource Recovery Advisory Council should present the resolution, followed by the ED, interested persons, and then OPIC. OGC recommends 5 minutes.
Thank you. I understand Mr. Yankee is here representing the council. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning. I apologize in advance. I didn't wear a suit today. I just got back from vacation yesterday afternoon in northern Michigan, and I just couldn't put the suit back on.
Hey, you look fine. I'm sorry we had to be the first thing that you did after returning from vacation, but
No problem.
Welcome home to the heat, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. For the record, my name is Dave Yankee. I'm the president of New Gen Strategies and Solutions. I also serve as the president for the Municipal Solid Waste Management Resource and Recovery Advisory Council. We crafted this resolution and have put it before you, and we support this. We believe it's good for the state of Texas. I'll talk about that very briefly, but I think it is important. Again, the MSRAC was put in place. You folks appoint folks to this, and we are supposed to serve in an advisory role to TCEQ at your leisure on topics that come up. This resolution was voted on unanimously by our advisory council, and I think it's important to note our advisory council has a wide cross-section. We have two of the largest private or waste companies in the United States on it, folks from Republic and Waste Management. We have folks from councils of government, local governments, engineering consultants, the concerned citizens. I represent the financial folks. We work with local governments and financial issues dealing with recycling, et cetera. But everybody believes that this is supported the resolution. What this would encourage if the TCEQ were to take a lead in this implementation of recommendations in this plan, it would further, in our belief, expand the opportunity for job creation with regard to various environmental recycling, reuse activities. There are already a lot of things taking place in Texas with regard to what we call the closed loop, where materials are recycled and then either used by manufacturers in their product or in their packaging. So we believe this would be good for the state of Texas and create jobs. I want to just close with one quick example of how this would happen. For instance, when China, you said, okay, we don't want any more recyclables from the United States because of contamination. One of the things that happened, it created opportunities. South Carolina, for instance, has very active programs to court some of these type of businesses we would recommend you look at. What they did is some Chinese manufacturers came over and set operations up in South Carolina where they are collecting as much PET, the recycling, think your Coke bottles, water bottles, and taking that and then manufacturing and creating the flake product, and they're shipping it back to China. Those are the type of industry with the port and all those things that I think makes a lot of sense for us. So that's all I had. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Yonke. I do have one question for you. I think I saw in the backup material that one of the biggest, and I know there are other folks who are signed in to speak, so I may ask them to answer the same question, but one of the biggest challenges to recycling is that problem of contamination, and I'm wondering, what is South Carolina doing in terms of standards or education to address that?
Right. No, that's a great question. You're spot on. That is one of the biggest issues. I can tell you right now, I can't answer specifically what South Carolina is doing with that. We work with local governments that have recycling programs and have contracts with MRFs, material recovery facilities. And so we are always looking at those contamination issues. And so one of the things we will see, cities are great at, or the vast majority of cities are good at educating and getting the word out. But one of the challenges you will run into is inconsistency in messaging sometimes, because different MRFs will take glass. Some will, some won't. And so the messaging, and that's one of the things that's talked about, is consistency in messaging. And then I'll get off my soapbox. One of the biggest things that MRFs push is we see folks that put their recyclables, you live in Austin, you put your recyclables in your blue bin or cart, but people put them in a plastic bag. They take it out of their 13-gallon. I had to talk with one of our neighbors and tell her she was doing it wrong. Fortunately, we're friends, so she's like, I had no idea. So that's one of the biggest challenges, is not bagging your recyclables.
I have a related question. Do I have to clean out the peanut butter jar before I put it in the recycling bin?
So on your peanut butter, and this is just me personally, I'd put it in the trash. There's a saying they use, when in doubt, throw it out. So the things that are clean and easy, plastic bottles that are clean and liquid, do that.
Fair enough.
I don't save the peanut butter.
Yeah, okay.
You have a dog, don't you?
We have a dog also. Yeah. I've done that before, actually. He does a pretty good job cleaning it out,
Oh.
except his tongue is only so long, so he can't quite reach the bottom of
I'll
it.
lend you mine. He'll clean it out.
I'll bring you all my empty peanut butter jars.
No, I'll bring you my dog.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Colleagues, any other questions for Mr. Yonke?
No.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. I guess the executive director of staff is up next. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Charlie Fritz with the Waste Permits Division. With me today is Guy Henry of the Environmental Law Division and David Greer of the External Relations Division. As Mr. Yonke explained, MSRAC is an advisory council to the agency. One of MSRAC's core function includes reviewing and evaluating policies on municipal solid waste management and making recommendations to the agency. A little bit about the Recycling Market Development Plan. Due to legislation, the agency was directed to develop a plan to promote the use of recycled material feedstocks, and we published the Recycling Market Development Plan in August of 2021. This plan provides a detailed analysis of recycling in Texas, including amounts, economic impacts, and market conditions. Additionally, the plan describes barriers, opportunities, and recommendations to increase diversion. MSRAC's resolution recommends the agency begin examining and implementing strategies from the Recycling Market Development Plan to increase recycling and diversion, along with appropriate funding for recycling activities. While the Executive Director did review and publish the recycling plan, and we continue to champion the overall report as a well-developed, well-documented review and study of recycling in Texas, there are recommendations and strategies in that plan that exceeds the agency's statutory authority. Therefore, the Executive Director recommends continuing to implement and support the agency's current recycling, education, outreach, and permitting activities as outlined by the Texas Health and Safety Code. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. I have none. Colleagues, any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. Ms. Smith, I guess I'll ask you to call the interested persons.
First on my list is Ms. Rachel Herring.
Hello,
morning.
Commissioners. Good morning. The traffic on MOPAC is real again, so I apologize for my tardiness.
You're perfectly on time.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe winded, but perfectly on time.
A little bit, yes. My name is Rachel Herring. I'm the director of Keep Texas Beautiful's Keep Texas Recycling Program. The Keep Texas Recycling Program, or KTR, provides a variety of services to entities across the value chain to increase recycling opportunities. Our partnerships between national organizations, brands, and government entities have helped KTR expand collection sites and items collected at these recycling sites, which has been vital to increasing recycling access in Texas. But it's not enough. KTR provides technical assistance throughout the state of Texas to any and all communities and groups interested in recycling. The majority of this work is done through public workshops, trainings, and webinars so we can reach a larger audience, but also includes individual site visits, often crucial to understanding the needs of each unique community. I was in Smithville last week. I'm going to Burleson County next week and Bandera County the week after. So, yeah. I'm on the road a lot. KTR has been invited to advise and work with groups all over the country and Canada to show that it is possible to advance rural recycling, but it's not enough. Since 1994, KTR's main focus has been cooperative opportunities for recycling in rural and underserved areas. Members of the cooperative benefit from KTR services, which include consultation on the implementation and improvement of recycling programs, contract negotiations within markets, community outreach and education, and grant writing services. Our members range from 200 in population to one of the largest military bases in the country. In the last 25 years, KTR members have given recycling access to over 750,000 Texans and recycled over 317 million pounds of material. This has generated over 11.5 million in revenue for these communities and saved 487,000 cubic yards of landfill space. But it's still not enough. We continue to see the same issues year after year that stunt the growth of recycling in Texas, especially in rural communities. Funding for infrastructure has decreased, and along with it, the efficiency in operations. I'm seeing aging equipment all over the state, and it's really scary to think what happens if they don't have a baler, they don't have a forklift, they don't have glass pulverizers to continue their program. A strong educational campaign to help the public understand what is and isn't recyclable and how and why that might change from community to community is vital to help decrease contamination, an issue that affects quality, pricing, and marketability. Speaking of markets, we need more of them. And we need help figuring out how to overcome the transportation issues associated with shipping material across and most of the time out of state. We need help staffing recycling programs, we need more drivers, and we need help with these community recycling programs to become the most cost-effective, efficient programs they can be. I don't want to see another program on pause from lack of staff. I don't want to see another program stop accepting materials because it's too contaminated. And I don't want to see another community feel like they can't start a recycling program because they lack the funding and volume to do so. The recommendations in the Recycling Market Development Plan are ways that could advance recycling efforts in Texas, and they are all very important ways to finally do more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Herring. Colleagues, any questions for Ms. Herring? Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Shannon.
Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. For the record, my name is Steve Shannon. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Business Council for the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling. And we appreciate the opportunity to submit our testimony to you. You've received our written testimony. I won't repeat that. We've had the opportunity to meet with you or your staffs recently, and we appreciate that very much. And we also appreciate the work that the agency has done to produce this plan, which is probably the most comprehensive in the state. Certainly some of the things are currently beyond your statutory capability, and some of the things that we're asking for will require new legislation, and we're willing to run with that ball if we're given the opportunity. I'd just like to say that Texas has 10% of all the municipal solid waste in this nation. We have 9% of the population. Our economy is more robust than average, and so we have 10% of the problem, but also 10% of the opportunity. The Recycling Market Development Plan was revealed a lot. It was based upon and building upon basically legislation that was passed and codes that were instituted in 1989, which directed this state as a matter of state policy to promote recycling as a preferred solid waste management method over landfilling. The plan reveals that in 2019, we recycled more than 13 million tons of municipal solid waste, while we continued to landfill 33 million tons. That the impact of that recycling has a $7.8 billion annual impact to the state's economy. That the industry is paying $225 million in state and local taxes, that there are more than 31,000 Texans employed in this industry. And this has grown with some help from the state, but not on the scale of an industry of that size. And what we're asking for is for things that are directly derived from the Recycling Market Development Plan, which is the creation of a state recycling market development board to oversee and coalesce the industry so that we can deal with the issues and challenges and problems we've had and help grow it, help connect the supply and chain better, supply to consumption chain better. The development and operation of a recycling market development center at one of the state universities to conduct research and development and those types of things which are spelled out in our testimony, what we're thinking need to be done. For money for staffing for the agency so that they can do their jobs. I think they want to do this, but without the money, they can't do much. And then one of the biggest problems that was mentioned was this issue of contamination. There are no national quality standards for recyclables. There's no standards whatsoever. But it's a matter of confusion on the part of the public. We're suffering from a 25% contamination rate, which would be debilitating to any industry. And so we're hoping that money can be funneled through the agency to the COGS to conduct regional public education and awareness harmonization.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yes, sir.
I'm curious about, do the standards need to come before the education, or can you do them in tandem?
They could be done in tandem. The ISRI, the Institute of Recycling Scrap Industries, have standards that some communities are beginning to adopt. But everybody's been waiting since RCRA was passed in '76 for some kinds of standards. And so that hasn't happened. So ISRI has stepped forward and at least offered some standards, point of generation quality standards. Up the supply chain, there are standards that are agreed to by the various people in that chain, but it's not any kind of a necessarily published standard. So part of it, though, is to be able to eliminate the confusion that we're all subject to. You know,
Yeah,
what's
and
recyclable
it
here is
seems to me, and
different.
I'm sorry to throw you off your prepared remarks, I'll let
That's
you
all
get back
right.
to them, but it seems to me that there's a challenge in that the standards might be a dynamic thing as, you know, technologies develop, business plans change, you know, raw material needs evolve, and, you know, so do you go with a simple but imperfect standard that you can just stick with, or are you necessarily going to be in a cycle where you're going to have to continue educating the public? And I hate, you know, just to confess this, the public has limited capacity to study the recycling requirements as much as we'd like to. So that seems to be one of the big challenges.
Yes, sir. It does, and there are many different components to this. There's electronic waste recycling, traditional recycling like we see at our houses, commercial and industrial debris, organics recycling. There's many different components to this that may have needs for different standards, and that is why we think that a recycling market development board can coalesce and examine those things and perhaps recommend standards, quality standards that may be subject to modification as needs and opportunities dictate.
Sure.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question,
I think
sir?
so. Yeah, and I'm sorry to throw you off your remarks, so I'll let you get back to it.
Not a problem, sir. So those are the needs that we have identified, which would require a funding of about $8 million a year over a 5-year period, which is minuscule compared to the $7.8 billion annual impact and the $225 million a year that this is paying, that the industry is paying. The money is there. Since 1989, there's been a landfill tip fee surcharge that puts money into the 5,000 fund, which funds the agency to some extent, and the councils of governments to do solid waste planning. However, only a portion of that is being appropriately allocated to the purpose. The balance of that fund right now is approximately $125 million. The tip fee generates about $30 million a year. The agency gets a little bit, the COGS get a little. The rest of it, the state is sitting to balance the budget. We assert that a portion of that, and what we're asking for would be 14% of that over this 5-year period, considering the fund balance of 125 plus 30 million a year. We're only asking for 14% of that to pursue these purposes. There's also been a question of, well, if we recycle, will that not reduce tonnage in the landfills, and therefore there's less tons to apply this tip fee to, or surcharge to? Well, not when we think about that the state itself says that our population is going to expand by 57% by 2050. So even though we're recycling more, there's a direct correlation between population and solid waste generation, about a ton per person per year, half of that being from residential and half from commercial industrial sources. So
That's 5 minutes.
I really ate into your time, so please continue, Mr. Shannon.
thank you very much. We would ask for your support to ask for an appropriation or ask for the legislature to look for this money, to send a signal to them that this is serious in a matter of great concern to this agency. And the stakeholders, including STAR and other members, will run with the legislative ball and try to get this legislation passed to enable these things if we feel as though this agency is supportive of that. I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. I think I interrupted you with all of mine. Colleagues, questions for Mr. Shannon?
No, thank you.
I appreciate the remarks today, and no questions at this time.
Ms. Smith, is anybody else signed in to speak?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No.
Okay. Mr. McWhirter.
OPIC agrees with the general statements of support for recycling and outreach activities expressed in the Executive Director's proposed resolution. OPIC also appreciates the efforts of the Municipal Solid Waste Management and Resource Recovery Advisory Council in advocating for implementation of the Recycling Market Development Plan. Section 10 of the plan describes several potential roles for TCEQ in implementing the plan's strategies in the areas of outreach and technical assistance, preferential procurement, financial assistance, incentives and disincentives, and policy initiative developments. How to implement the plan hinges on significant questions of statutory authority, funding, and staffing, it would seem. And OPIC understands why the agency may want to await further direction from the legislature before making any commitment more specific than the resolution proposed by the Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. McWhirter. Colleagues, this is my view. In terms of the substance of the council's recommendations, I think they are headed in the right direction. And to be careful, I want to carve out and not comment or opine on those aspects of the plan that are outside of the agency's jurisdiction. It's clear to me that there is a lot of opportunity for diversion and recycling, and that there are significant, clear environmental and economic benefits that would flow from that. So we need to be moving in this direction, and I appreciate the council's work. I also understand the funding recommendation. I don't have any particular issue with it, except, and this is a big but, in the context of the agency's competing priorities. So when TCEQ goes to the legislature to ask for funding, at the very top of my list is going to be to address issues of hiring and retention, which is related to salaries, just to perform the non-discretionary responsibilities of this agency. And in addition to that, the Sunset Commission staff has identified priorities for the agency. So I applaud the plan, I applaud the council's work, I applaud the work of the individual stakeholders, but just when it comes to prioritizing the needs of this agency, I'm not prepared to ask the legislature for these funds, although I would cheer on anybody who does put this issue front and center for the legislature, because I think it is important. So colleagues, those are my thoughts. Oh, let me add too, I understand that we don't need to take, this item is just to consider the resolution that the advisory council has made, that we don't have to take any action today. In addition, the executive director staff prepared a resolution for our consideration, invited us to act on that. I don't know that we need to do that. I don't know that it adds or changes anything, but in terms of, sort of procedurally what we're here to do today, I don't know that we need to pass any particular motion. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Those are all great points. I'll cut to the chase and say I'm in agreement. I will say, yesterday I was able to meet with Mr. Shannon. He was kind enough to come up to TCEQ, and he's a very busy gentleman in his retirement. So I commend his passion and the other folks that are here today for the topic. You know, diving into this a little, it has piqued interest, you know, my interest in what do we need to be doing. I completely agree that education is kind of the big, shiny item that we need to focus on. And maybe there's a way between, you know, our Take Care of Texas program and Keep Texas Beautiful, we can, I don't know, get together and talk about ideas we have there. So I want to continue conversations on the education piece of this, because I think that is, we can do something there. But like you, I have the same priorities as far as what we approach the legislature with next session. And so if we, you know, I was coming in prepared to take action, if you will, and that would be to support the executive director's resolution. But I'm also comfortable if we don't take action and, quite frankly, just continue to have conversations. I hope that what happens here today, or maybe in some people's opinions, what doesn't happen here today, doesn't deflate the enthusiasm for the topic, and that, you know, if you all feel the need, you still push for legislation or whatever you think appropriate. So with that, I'm finished.
Thank you. Commissioner Janeka?
I don't think I'm in disagreement at all with the general statement, sentiment y'all have expressed, and I think if we're all taking an unofficial vote count, I'm also comfortable moving forward with the executive director's resolution before us, acknowledging we don't need to take action. I think there's value in us affirming what parts of it we can support that reflect the limits of our agency's authority, which is pretty narrow as it comes to many of these great ideas. And this is not a insignificant report. There's a lot of really good specific what each of the many stakeholders and actors can do and how they can try to chip away at this very large problem that's a little beyond all of us. It pushes us all into the liminal space, and this is a plan that I think is very clear to me. This issue calls out for leadership. Our agency is a natural leader, and I appreciate the leadership from the council in putting their support behind this plan and asking us so explicitly to step up and take that leadership role. And unfortunately, it pushes us right into the liminal space between agencies, entities, authority, express statutory authority. That's exactly where our agency does not want to function and live. And so until we get a clear path forward from the legislature and a clear indication that the additional funding support, changes on tipping fees, some of those changes may be the directions the state leaders envision for our agency. I think that we have to come up to the edge of where our space and authority exists. And so the substance of the executive director's resolution, I don't disagree with it whatsoever, but it is ultimately very, very unsatisfyingly short of what I think this plan calls all of the collective Texas public to really consider and to take on. I want to work with y'all, and I want to work with the supporters of this plan and this initiative as our agency is completely turned upside down before the public's eye as we undergo sunset this next legislative session. I think where the growing support among the public for a clear leader for these efforts across our big state, I think that's a natural question that will really beg a discussion this coming session. I look forward to participating in that. I'm very, very grateful for the leadership again of the council in putting their support behind this. I think it would be important for our agency to say we support the idea of recycling and we want to continue to explore it and support it through to the extent that our agency has those authorities. And I look forward to seeing where this conversation continues to take us into the future.
I guess the only thing I would add is that I don't want the conversation today to suggest that we, just continue on doing what we're doing and not look for ways to move the ball, albeit incrementally and not in the more robust way that the council has advised, but to do that within existing resources, whether it's chipping away at the issue of standards or education around contamination, that we keep pushing that. All right, well, other thoughts or comments?
No, I'm good.
In terms of the motion, just my feeling about it is, I don't think it adds very much, doesn't say
Yeah.
a whole lot, doesn't change anything. I'm worried that people might read into that something that's not there. So I think my personal preference would simply be to take no action on this item.
I'm comfortable with that.
The same here.
All right, well, thank you for the presentations. We appreciate it. It's a very important topic. And that'll close out the conversation on item 5. Ms. Smith, I'll ask you to please call the next item.
Item number 6 is the consideration and approval of the agency's FY 2022 operating budget and its legislative appropriation request.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, I'm Stephanie Robinson, Assistant Deputy Director of the Budget and Planning Division. I am here to present the Executive Director's recommended fiscal year 2023 operating budget and the fiscal years 2024 and 2025 legislative appropriations request. This information was compiled in accordance with the General Appropriations Act and guidance provided by the Office of the Governor, Budget and Policy Division, and the Legislative Budget Board. Turning to page 1 of the fiscal year 2023 operating budget, the total budget for FY 2023 is $483 million, compared to the FY 2022 budget of $500 million. This is a decrease of $17 million or 3%, and is mostly attributed to front-loaded riders, federal funds not awarded yet in FY 23, and cost recovery that we received in FY 22. The increase in FTEs is mainly attributed to the additional 9.5 FTEs that we received for the federal lead and copper rule revisions. On page 2, we provide an illustration of the method of finance for FY 2023, which reflects appropriated fee funds at 51% and TERP fee funds at 35% of the budget, with the total fee funds at 86% of our total budget. The following page provides the allocation of FTEs by office, and as stated earlier, the increases in FTEs is mainly attributed to the additional 9.5 FTEs received for the federal lead and copper rule revisions. Page 4 provides a comparison of the office of the budget by office. The largest change is reflected in the Office of Waste. The decrease is a result of approximately $5 million in one-time expenses and the front loading of the $3 million related to Rider 14 environmental radiation and perpetual care. The following page, on page 5, provides a comparison of the budget by category. Other operating is decreasing by $19 million or 19% of our budget, which is mostly in professional, temporary services, and other operating. Page 6 provides a list of programs supporting remediation, reimbursement, and grant contracts. And page 7 and 8 provides details of our capital budget. And the last page provides a summary of the estimated budget for the TERP programs, which is based on current revenue and program need estimates. And this concludes the overview of the recommended FY 2023 operating budget.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Colleagues, any questions? All right. Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak on this item?
No one is registered on this item.
Thank you. Mr. McWhirter?
No questions or concerns. I support the ED's recommendation.
Thank you. Colleagues, I feel the same way. I've reviewed the budget, I've been briefed on it, and I'm ready to move forward.
Likewise.
Are we hearing about the LAR, or are we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it. I'm not ready.
I got ahead of you, I'm sorry.
But I am comfortable with the operating budget.
Thank you. If you'll turn to page 1 of the summary of the recommended FY 2024 and 2025 legislative appropriations request. Pages 1 and 2 provide an overview of the FY 24-25 baseline request, which totals $654 million by method of finance and strategy. This is a decrease of $17 million compared to the FY 22-23 budget. The difference is attributed to cost recovery, federal funds, and HB2 supplemental appropriation received for the occupational licensing and Commissioners Integrated Database, as well as one-time funding related to HB 2708 implementation. On page 3, we detailed the agency's FY 2024 capital budget request of $35 million, which is a decrease of $1 million compared to the FY 22-23 budget. The difference is attributed to one-time funding associated with the safety improvements for the Houston Regional Office project. Pages 4 and 5 detail the agency's exceptional items request. The agency is submitting 4 items totaling $92 million and 9 FTEs. The first priority is the targeted salary increases for mission-critical staff with a total request of $72 million for the biennium. Nearly all of TCQ's positions have salaries below the midpoint of the classification, which is meant to correspond with the average pay in the job market per the state auditor's office. This request will allow the agency to address classifications with the highest turnover and salary lag, while also providing the remainder of the agency an increase to ensure the agency is offering comparable salaries with other governmental agencies. The second item is increased access to public records. This request totals $7 million and includes imaging and document review and redaction of our most requested agency records, increasing availability of records to the public via our TCQ Records online portal. The third item is Austin and Regional Offices lease and maintenance security increase, and this request totals $6 million and would provide funding to support the additional cost of the lease extension in FY 24 and 25 for the Austin headquarters and 15 regional offices. Funding would also support the additional cost of the maintenance and security contract renewal with the Texas Facilities Commission for the Austin headquarters. Our fourth item is the agency website usability enhancement. This request totals $6 million and 9 FTEs. TCQ is currently under review by the Sunset Advisory Commission, and in their published staff report detailed in issue 1, it suggests improvements to TCQ's agency website to assist in usability and ease of access to the data for the public. So currently, public information is managed across 89 different programs and within 4,300 plus web pages and 118 IT applications. Updates to make public website information easier to access, which includes interlinking web pages and providing easily digestible formats, will require additional resources and staff to accomplish the enhanced usability of this website. The remaining pages 6 through 10 provide a summary of our rider revisions. The agency is recommending 3 rider revisions, 3 deletions, and 2 new riders. And I'll just highlight a few of the recommended changes. Rider 19, TERP grants and administration, is revised to increase the amount that TCQ may temporarily utilize for temporary cash flow needs associated with supporting the increase in programmatic funding made accessible to the TERP program. Rider 27, expedited processing of permit application. This rider has been revised to appropriate all surcharges collected. And our 2 new riders were submitted in the previous session and we're resubmitting for consideration. The new rider for environmental radiation and perpetual care financial assurance addresses appropriation constraints by allowing the agency to carry forward financial assurance received at the end of the biennium to the next biennium, while the new rider for capital budget expenditures would allow the agency to utilize salary savings to support one-time capital budget items such as facility improvements, transportation items, and equipment. This concludes our presentation. We request your approval of the FY 2023 operating budget and FY 2024 legislative appropriations request. In addition, we respectfully request permission to make non-substantive changes to the final documents submitted in accordance with instructions received by oversight agencies. I thank you for your time. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. And I'm sorry to have interrupted you. I have no questions. Colleagues,
No
questions?
No, thank you.
None for me.
All right, Mr. McWhirter, same answer?
Same answer, no questions.
Okay. Colleagues, same answer for me, too.
Well, I can make a motion if we're ready. I would move that we approve the Commission's fiscal year 2023 operating budget and fiscal years 2024 through 2025 legislative appropriation requests as proposed by the Executive Director.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next items.
That takes us to our enforcement docket, which is items 7 through 28, and the Executive Director's staff is here to present these matters.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, and with me today are Susan Jablonski, also of the Enforcement Division, and Gitanjali Yadav of the Litigation Division representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 7 through 28. The total assessed administrative penalties are $358,316, with $54,441 deferred, $97,249 applied for supplemental environmental projects, and $206,626 to the general revenue. We respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. I have none. Colleagues, any questions?
Likewise.
All right. Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak?
On items 7, 8, and 9, we had several individuals who signed in and indicated that they were available if the commission had any questions, but don't need to speak.
All right. Thank you. Mr. McWhirter?
OPIC reviewed these items, and we recommend approval of the proposed orders as presented by the Executive Director.
Colleagues, I think that's right. I'm ready to move forward with the enforcement docket.
Agreed.
As am I, and I'll make the motion that we adopt items 7 through 28 as recommended today by the Executive Director.
A second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item 29 is the consideration of a petition for rulemaking filed by Brian Wakefield of B&J Wakefield Services Incorporated to amend 30 Texas Administrative Code Chapter 285 concerning on-site sewage disposal systems to allow the use of cross-linked polyethylene or PEX piping. Mr. Brian Wakefield is the petitioner and may present the matter, followed by other interested persons, the ED, and then OPIC. OGC recommends limiting speakers to 5 minutes for their presentations.
Thank you. Mr. Wakefield? Mr. Wakefield, are you with us? If you can hear me, you might double check your mute button. Give him just a moment. Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak on this item?
No one has signed in to speak on this item, and my understanding is that we don't have an indication that Mr. Wakefield is online.
Okay. Let's turn then to the Executive Director's office. And good morning. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioner, General Counsel,
I'm not sure we're picking you up on the mic. Is it turned on?
It shows it's green.
You might pull it a little bit
Okay.
closer to you or lean in. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Donna Cosper with the Program Support and Environmental Assistance Division. And with me is Kathy Humphreys with the Environmental Law Division and Andy Gardner, the Deputy Director of the Program Support and Environmental Assistance Division. The rulemaking petition before you is recommended. It's an amendment to 30 Tax Section 285.33A5 to allow PEX pipe as an option for use in OSSFs instead of Schedule 40 PVC pipe when the pipe is under internal pressure within any part of the on-site sewage facility. Staff respectfully recommends denial of the petition because PEX pipe has not been proven to be as protective of the environment and public health as Schedule 40 PVC pipe. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cosper. I have none. Colleagues, any questions?
No, thank you.
I had one question, and it's not specifically about, excuse me, a bit of a feedback. The question's not specific necessarily to this petition, this rulemaking, but I understand there are other related topical rulemakings that are currently underway by staff. Could you comment to what extent this particular request or substantive issue may have come up in those discussions?
It has not at all.
Well, I very much appreciate that. That's helpful context to me, and I think that this is a useful request to have documented from the public and a useful, I think, response from our executive director staff looking at and finding apparently very little evidence of this particular pipe used in the applications that we're asked to sign off on. So I look forward to seeing perhaps evidence of that in the future, but I'm satisfied at this point. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cosper. Mr. McWhirter.
OPIC agrees with the ED's position, and we recommend denial of the petition.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm in the same place at this. Until we can have a high level of confidence that PEX is as protective as Schedule 40, I don't want to head down this path. And Commissioner Janeka alluded to this. This is not an answer for all purposes and all times. If that information is developed, we'd be happy to see a similar petition in the future. But I'm suggesting denial.
I'm in agreement.
Likewise.
Well, then I will make a motion. I move that we deny the petition for rulemaking filed by Brian Wakefield, President of B&J Wakefield Services Incorporated, concerning amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 285, regarding PEX piping filed on June 20th, 2022, because PEX pipe has not been proven to be at least equally protective of the environment and public health as ASTM Schedule 40 pipe, which is the type of pipe that is approved for use in an OSSF, and that we adopt the executive director's proposed order.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item number 30 is our public comment session. Currently, we don't have anyone to sign in to speak at this time, but can pause and let anybody come up if they're here to comment. Looks like we don't have anyone, so that takes us to the end of the items posted for open session. Items 31 through 34 are for closed session, and the commission will meet in closed session today in Building E, Room 211S at, well, I'll say in 5 minutes, which I think takes us to 10:43 approximately, as permitted by the Open Meetings Act, including Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 through 074, to take up and consider matters pursuant to items numbers 31 through 34 as posted and noticed.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. With that, the time is 10:38, and we stand in recess.
The commission met in Building E, Room 211S for closed session from approximately 10:43 until 11:01 a.m. on item number 32 as posted in notice pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. No action was taken. This agenda stands adjourned and the time is 11:04.